Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 43 of Rise Up the Podcast. I'm here with your host, Greg Beast Grenlin. We are here to recap an interesting group of semifinal games. Not what we expected. Our man Hutton last week nailed it right on the head with the Archers. He had that feeling, and I mean, we can get into it in a little bit, but before we get into those games, you know how we like to do it. Recap our weeks. Greg, how was your last week? How's it going? I'm sure it's all crazy with September 1 being about 10 days ago, 12 days ago. So how's it going?
It's going well so far. FOA guys are flying off the board, going to their dream schools. Always a great thing, but for every one kid who gets to go to his dream school, 30 lacrosse dads are upset and they text me. So, look, it's an interesting time for a parent and a player. And, we're just trying our best to help guys navigate it. 700 kids want to go to Yale, and only one's going to go. So you always got to try to help kids manage expectations. Sibes, it's interesting with that whole, recruiting thing. I think the media makes such a massive deal out of September 1 that these poor kids think, the whole recruiting day is just, that's it.
How great was your boy Jerry's tweet yesterday?
It was awesome. Dude, we do this every year, Sibes. Every year we do this. And I was telling parents, I'm still getting emails about 2024 face-off guys. And the 25s, it happens every year. 3 or 4 guys get their dream school because they're the best at their position, ranked-wise, as far as coaches are concerned. And if you're an athlete and you're listening to this, don't expect that you're just done lacrosse after your summer before your junior year. You have to be prepared for fall ball. And guess what? If you play well in fall ball, you should be ready to play well in the spring. Not just if you're uncommitted, but if you're committed, you are committing to continuing to get better. And what I've seen, and I don't know about you, but I've seen, especially with this face-off thing, kids commit and then they just throw the towel in. They don't want to work on their game anymore. They don't want to get better. You don't see them anymore. The next time I hear from some kids is when they're in the portal after their freshman year because they didn't get any better and now they're not playing. So don't make that mistake. Be prepared to continue to get better. Because when you say you're committing, you're not just committing to go to a school. You're committing to be ready to play and make a difference. Because if you're a freshman incoming, you remember what it was like, Sibes, at Villanova. Totally. Every year, first practice, what kind of freshman do we got? We got this 20th ranked attackman. How is he? And if you show up and you're not what people think you are, it's going to be an awkward first year.
And I'll tell you this too, for kids listening. When I was at school and we had, some, Under Armour All-American coming in who's an attackman, and I'm already there, I'm like, I'm not letting this motherfucker take my spot. I'm making him go behind me every drill. I'm, giving him elbows. I'm making sure, your teammates, yes, but it's still competitive. You're not giving up your spot if you're already on the team. You got to keep working.
And coaches
always
love
room to get better.
So that's what we've been doing, but now we're in the fall, and look, I love lacrosse, but football's here, baby.
Oh yeah,
and I love football, man. So cool times. How about you?
I had a pretty busy last weekend. I had a wedding up in it was close to Lake Placid. It wasn't in Lake Placid. It was this place called Ossable Club up in upstate New York. It was beautiful.
Beautiful.
It was one of my high school friends. He invited all of our buddies from high school. We were on this compound where there was nothing else around it. There was cabins and stuff. It was super cool. Wow. There was a 9-hole golf course there. There was, activities, and we had a really good time. So it was fun. Got back, woke up early Sunday morning so I could get back and watch sports. So I was hurting a little bit. I had to maybe take a little bit of a snooze so I could be ready for the Pats game at 4. But it was a good weekend. I'll tell you what, though. Do you still have cable, or are you a cord cutter?
I haven't cut the cord now because I am so convinced that if I cut the cord, that Verizon is going to suddenly make my internet go slower.
So this is the first time in my life in this apartment, so about a year, that I haven't cut the cord, that I have cut the cord, so I don't have cable anymore.
How is it on the other side?
It sucks because I want to flick to the PLL games and between the PLL and the football games. I want to go back and forth. But now I have to go into the ESPN app, out of the ESPN app, into the NFL app, out of the NFL app. It's bullshit. And
Dude,
it's such a pain.
It is the worst. We it's just like we got duped. Like when we were growing up, man, we drank tap water and everything was fine. Now we're convinced that we have to buy bottled water and pay for things that were free. Now, same thing. We used to watch television for like $20 a month. Now there's all of these streaming apps that have ads anyway, and now it's like I'm paying $600. I am afraid to itemize it, Sibes, but I guarantee I'm paying like $500 a month to watch shows.
It's like, thank God my parents still have cable because I use their login to get the HBO and the Showtime. And if that wasn't the
Wait
case,
till you get to my age where your in-laws are actually hogging your internet and stuff for free.
Yeah.
Flip the switch flips real quick.
With that being said, my solution was I brought out the iPad, had the PLL on the chest with the TV, with the football and the red zone in the background. But, man, we had some crazy games. And not crazy in a good way. Crazy and more so just surprising. Let's start off. Yeah, let's start off with the Archers and Redwoods game. I mentioned our boy Hutton Jackson came on, gave us some sharp picks. He had it right. I had it wrong. I believed in the Redwoods. I know you were kind of betting with your heart a little bit too, or following your heart a little bit. We liked the way the Redwoods played in the quarterfinal game. You know, they beat the Chaos by 6, but here, Archers just too much for them to handle.
I wanted so badly to go with the +1.5 with the Redwoods. And when we were talking on the show, you know, I was hoping that Hutton would convince me that was the move, but he didn't. And I went with the money line with the Archers because I just didn't want to be hurt again. So I thought, okay, if I bet, I do this with football sometimes with Penn State. Like I'll bet that they're not going to cover. So that way I either make money or I'm happy. So I did the same thing. I bet the Archers money line. If the Redwoods pulled it off, I would have been happy, but lost my bet. Instead, I won my bet. I am happy for the Archers making it to the championship game for the first time. It's awesome. And Mike Sisselberger is a big part of that. And the MVP of the league, Tommy Schreiber, is a big part of that. Was very upset to see our boy Connor Fields go down, though. And that was a bummer because he's having a tremendous season. And, you know, we're wishing him the best of luck. I don't know what the exact prognosis was. I thought it was a shoulder. Was it a shoulder?
I think so. It looked like it was coming up, though, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a bummer for him.
Did it come out that he's done? Or
I mean, man's in a sling, so 2 weeks, I don't know. If that sublexed or if it came out of
If it's an AC joint, he could go through with it. If it popped out, then it's
it could. If it's a labrum, they can. I mean, there's plenty of things they can do to pad and tighten, but that's not. Yeah. You can't shoot with that off arm. You know, not that Connor Fields even needs two hands to play lacrosse, but the last thing you want is him getting. I mean, obviously, when he goes in the championship game, that shoulder is going to be targeted, and you don't want that. So.
Yeah, and I know this game, just the Archers just jumped out all over them.
Jumped all over them.
And, you know, they go out 4-0 in the first quarter. Redwood shows some fight. I mean, I think, you know, big story, they had, you know, Dobson played unbelievable.
Dude, he was almost 80%.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, the Redwoods had their chances, right?
They did, and Jack Kelly didn't play bad either. I mean, they only, you know, the Archers didn't have a single quarter where they scored more than 4 goals. Yeah. And, you know, Jack Kelly played great. And the faceoffs were relatively even. It was actually cool to see Granament be Granament. So, you know, offensively, the Archers were solid. But yeah, I mean, I thought the Redwoods did a pretty good job of getting back on the transitional defense. But it was just, I mean, Dobson was a stud, and they were collapsing so hard on the slides on the crease. They were basically daring the Redwoods to shoot it out from outside, and Dobson was eating everything up. So it was just really, I mean, it was great, impressive. It's just funny seeing that the Archers' defense is what got them into the championship. And you and I have been saying this all season. We've been enamored with their offense, but their defense was really good, and no one was giving them credit. And it was just cool to see that.
Yeah, and I know I should have been more clear at the start of the show. We're just giving a recap of the semifinals. We have a week off in between before the championship. We'll give our previews next week. But what also comes up, and we can get into this later on, we don't have to get into it too deep right now, but the Redwoods have a lot of decisions to make off season. I saw their list of free agents after this year. team can look really different next year.
Yeah.
Which I mentioned last episode. I love that they still have their core of Notre Dame guys, but they have some really tough decisions, going forward.
For what we understand, Glaze is going to be done. So, that's massive. And we'll see what other things happen. But yeah, I mean, we're going to have an entire offseason worth of shows to talk about these offseason moves. Each team, just the year that it is with guys' contracts structured the way they are, there's going to be a lot of these situations going into the offseason. But, I think if you're the Redwoods, I think the thing they got to figure out is the midfield.
Yeah.
What are we going to do in the midfield to score? You can't have one scoreless quarter and expect to win in the PLL, let alone two.
Yeah.
And they were outscored 7-3 in both halves. So, it's I'm sure those guys are frustrated. I'm sure Rob Pinnell's frustrated. Garnsey, guys who had crazy good seasons, but they have to figure out what are we going to do in the offseason to get some midfield production out of this team.
How many years do you think Rob has left? He's still playing like he's 22.
Dude, Rob still. I like I was saying before. I think Rob is at the peak of his career right now.
Totally.
With the combination of he's still athletic, he's still playing at a high level athletically and physically. He takes great care of his body. And now he has enough experience in his years of playing professionally, especially in the PLL now, that he can be devastating because the game slows down for you. It was like Ray Lewis towards the end of his career when he was even better, even though he was slowing down a little bit because he saw the game before it happened. So, it's I think that attack unit is awesome, and I think they're going to do everything they can to keep it intact, but they got to find some midfield help.
Definitely. I think that's a great point. And, they brought in Romar, and I think I was a little critical for that trade, not in terms of the personnel, but kind of just questioning, what the reason was behind it.
I got to give you credit, though. I don't think you were flat out like they shouldn't have done it. You and I were both just kind of like, let's see what happens. And it actually turned out to be good for both sides. Both sides got the best. They definitely got more production out of both guys.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. So, credit to Romar for finishing the season strong with the Redwoods. Congrats to the Redwoods on a great season. Yeah. They won some close, gritty games. They produced countless highlights, and they shouldn't hang their heads. Great season. They ran into a better team at this point of the season, and that team's moving on. They've been the best team all year, and they ran into a buzzsaw. But speaking of a buzzsaw, holy shit! This next game, Water Dogs, Cannons. Speaking of flicking, when it took me 5 minutes to get out of the NFL app into the ESPN app and turn this game on, the score jumped in the second quarter, and I was like, whoa, what the hell is going on?
Dude, it was 17-6, and it wasn't even that close. The Dogs jumped out on them. Right away.
I don't have the stats in front of me, but this has to be the biggest margin of victory on the season for any game.
Yeah, you don't see this very often. I mean, Dylan Ward played phenomenal. And he played like gold medal, Canada winning Dylan Ward. And once again, the opposition, Kirst, played great. 13 saves, almost 50% save percentage. But he was completely outshadowed. Wardo came way out on his crease and was in front of everything. Look, we had the fascinating face-off situation we thought we were going to have.
So that's exactly my question to you, because last week we talked about, last time they Courier won his face-offs, but the Cannons won. This what they do different this time?
So this is what happened this time. The Cannons are in such a full prevent. The problem with that is it's almost impossible to come back. And I was making the comment on Twitter during the game. You used to see great comebacks in lacrosse at all levels. It always is because they're able to win face-offs and gain momentum. Mm-hmm. You don't get that kind of mojo in the PLL this year. So if you're down going in the fourth quarter, good luck. Which sucks because it used to be the best part about pro lacrosse. But what I thought the difference is even though Courier isn't a face-off guy, quote unquote, he's a really smart player. And what you saw on the face-offs was the Cannons dropped everybody back. Literally their pole would go out there with his heel on his heels and on the whistle fall backwards and give you a ton of room because they just didn't want to get broken forward on a fast break. So what Courier started to notice was he could just flick the ball up to himself and run to the right. And then he started getting on an island. He started doing it in the fourth quarter, got an assist, and then got an immediate shot again. The difference, though, Eli Goldbrecht, when he would take the draws, he would go out there against Goodrich. It was pole on pole. And Eli would clamp the ball because Goodrich would just fall back. And he would just send it. He would literally ice the puck, all the way into the Cannons' arch. And I thought that was brilliant because what you're doing is you're basically saying if you don't pick it up, McCardle's going to pick it up and dunk it. If you do pick it up, now you have to clear from your own end, and you got 20 seconds basically to do it.
And so the clock doesn't start, right, until someone picks up the ball.
Yes.
You can goof as much as you want.
Yeah, I guess 30 seconds you get to clear the ball. And it happened every time I actually thought they did better when Goldberg was doing that. And he was throwing the ball into the zone of the Cannons. By the time they got their guys on, there was like 4 seconds left on the clock. I guarantee that's going to be a massive talking point, and we'll get to that. But that's a massive talking point in the offseason. No one likes this rule. Everyone hates it. It just flat out sucks. But they played it perfectly. And the problem for the Cannons was when you're relying on that as your main way of winning games, if you're not leading like they were most of the time, it's really impossible to get back into it. Because you're, at the very least, say in the fourth quarter, at the very least, you're giving up 30 seconds at a time because you just can't get the ball. And then it actually turned out to be even worse than that because they were turning it over and then running back on defense. So, yeah, I mean, the Water Dogs played a phenomenal game. And, Sowers was sensational. He had 6 points. They dominated on pretty much every aspect of the game. And I thought that, people will be like shocked. They'll be like, what are you talking about on the faceoffs? Because when you look at the stats, it says 56 to 40%, which – if you're keeping score at home, no, that doesn't equal 100%. But basically, it's that percentage because of Goldberg would just send it into the Cannons' end, and they wouldn't have any choice but to pick up the ground ball. So, what did you see from it? I just thought that the Water Dogs just dominated possession, and when they did have the ball, they were just really intelligent with it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. We love talking about the X factor positions, face-off and goaltending. And, right, the PLL did their best this season to take the X factor out of the face-off position. But when you get a hot goalie, players grip their sticks a little bit tighter. You get the ball less. You're not scoring. Even the pros, even at this level, you feel that pressure.
You feel it more. You feel it more in the pros because – at least in high school and college, there are a lot of role players. In the pros, even the second-string D-Midi was an alpha in college, right? Everybody's an All-American. Everybody was a Tewaaraton finalist. Everybody was a stud on their Division I or II or III team. So you feel that pressure even more, and you start to do more uncharacteristic things. In the I've been on both sides of this type of game. Remember in The Replacements, Keanu Reeves talks about a quicksand game where a couple things start going wrong, and then you start trying to force it, and the harder you fight and the harder you try to dig out of it, the more you sink. And you could tell the Cannons were just up and down frustrated in this game.
And this was disappointing to me as advertised. I think this game was supposed to be, 17-16, not 17-6. And it's a bummer because of how great of a season and how great of a turnaround the Cannons had that they kind of laid an egg here. And it's no one's fault, really. It's just kind of like you said, that all of them, everyone's trying to force it a little bit more. I'm sure at some point in that game, the players on the Cannons were like, why the fuck don't we have a face-off guy who can just get us the ball? Right?
You know what? And look, I would love to blame the rule on this, and I do believe that if we had a Jake Withers versus Jake Fopp face-off battle, this would have been a much better game. But that's not why the Water Dogs won by a lot. The Water Dogs won by a lot because they played a magnificent game.
They swung the ball.
By the way, Goldberg, we were talking about Goldberg. Let's just talk about that. There was a moment where he was clearing the ball, full speed, and he did a full swim move at midfield with a long pole. And I was like, yo, if there was still like a lacrosse, like Lax Sports Network. That should have been a top 5 play because I have freaking never seen that. It wasn't like a jumping, like barely doing it. It was like full swim in mid stride going 4.240. That dude can move, man. That was impressive.
Yeah, and then the Water Dogs converted on their chances. They were scoring easy goals, and
Yeah.
it's not because the Cannons were playing bad defense. It's because the Water Dogs were making the extra pass. They rode so hard. They were creating extra opportunities, and they were sharing the ball. It was pretty offense, and it was just. I'm sure the Cannons defensemen's heads were spinning. I'm sure they were like, man, we're playing defense again. Man, like, what the heck can we do? They're running out of slides. And, just hats off to the Water Dogs offense. They're back in the championship. They get to defend their title now. So, really cool to see. You talked about Sowers. What a game he had, 3-3. Just that's, another day in his life. Balance, putting the ball in the net, distributing the ball out there. The Cannons offense, the Water Dogs defense did a great job holding Nolting and Holman to really kind of, looking pretty.
That was incredibly impressive how well they played defense against Asher Nolting. Because Asher has been bullying people.
Absolutely.
Like Shaq, vintage Shaq in the lane dominance. And they played phenomenal team defense. And it was great to watch. And Sowers was Sowers. And I thought, look, I'll be honest. I think this game could have been more of a 20 or 21-6 type of game. The Water Dogs took their foot off the pedal in the fourth quarter and really tried to just kill time. So this could have been even. I mean, it was one of the most impressive games that I've watched in the PLL yet, where just top to bottom the team played like almost like foolproof lacrosse. And
Absolutely.
then I mean, look, in the middle of the game, they outscored them 13-3, second and third quarters. That's insurmountable. And look, just hats off, and Coach Andy Copeland. We have to talk about it all the time. Nobody gives the Water Dogs any credit, dude. Like, they come in here into this game, they're like, what were they? Were they a goal and a half favorite? Goal and a half dogs?
It was basically even. Money line
basically even.
It was money for the money lines. I think they gave the edge, the -1.5, to the Water Dogs, but I think it was plus something. Or no, something like that. But I remember the money lines was -120 Water Dogs, -110 Cannons. So basically even. But
and I think the Water Dogs, this was kind of a statement game where they're like, you are all, because I guarantee more people put money on the Cannons. They were like, yo, you forgot we're the champs. And until proven otherwise, we're still the champs.
Do you think Andy Copeland has done the best job tailoring his game plan to the style of the PLL?
Yeah. Because he has, at least this year, because he was the first person to adapt the idea of the prevent. And then half the league basically cut all their face-off guys. I mean, yes, it cost a lot of jobs. But he was the first person to employ that. He was the first person to basically let Zach Courier run the show.
But
I mean, you got a guy who's winning 15 out of 20 face-offs and then scoring 4 points for you. But then also, like we talked about, the counterattack. The counterattack transition for them has been money all season, where take the face-off, fine, and then boom. But even their ability to win face-offs and still win with a strategy, like we talked about, icing the puck. I mean, he's done a great job, man. Top to bottom. The guys obviously love playing for him. And
I think what you see from the Water Dogs more than any other team is them winning the sub game in terms of the prevent.
Always.
They're always winning the sub game. They're always creating odd man situations by springing guys out of the box, springing guys from the midfield line. They really have gotten that down, and it always leads to a goal or two a game, and that shit's big difference.
Yeah, he got his roster the way he wanted it, and he has had success playing the way that he believes they should be playing. And the guys have bought in. And, look, when you have, in my opinion, like I've said, the best two-way midfielder in the world doing what he's doing for you, and then you have Wardo playing like himself, it's going to be a real tough team to beat. Now, it's going to be fascinating when we do our preview next week. We actually have Chris Cotter from ESPN coming on next week to help us with that, which is going to be awesome. And we're going to be breaking down what this Archers versus Water Dogs championship is going to look like. dude, there's no way that game's not going to be incredible.
I totally agree. I'm super excited to dive deep into that with you. I wish we were going to be there again. It's a bummer we're not making our trip down. Are you going to be there? I know it's in Philly. Are you making your trip down to Philly for it, or?
No, I will not. Jack's, my son, started travel soccer, and I'm not going to miss his first game that weekend.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's going to be a great
I think
game.
you know what we did discuss possibly doing an IG live, or Twitter Spaces during the game. So we'll figure it out. But we'll be doing something during the game for sure. We might bring in, maybe we'll team up with PLL bets, get Noobs in there and Hutton, and see what we got. But we're in for a treat that weekend in Philly.
Absolutely. I'm excited for those game lines to come out and have Noobs kind of break it down, see where the smart money is on those games. But that's all we got for this wrap-up. The only other thing I wanted to touch on was, do you see that New York City lax stuff they had for the PLL? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I texted Paul just congratulating him, and he was like, man, this has been a goal of mine for like 10 years. And I remember when the New York Lizards were playing, and there was we tried our best a couple times. We actually had 2 games scheduled at Icon Stadium to try to get people in the city kind of pumped for Lizards lacrosse and pro lacrosse, but it never really came to fruition. So the fact that you have celebrities, KD, et cetera, just rolling in, and the way it was shot, even like the wet court, like everything was thought of. And I thought it was pretty cool. And Casey Powell even kind of chimed in. He's like, you guys are playing speed lacrosse in New York City. That's awesome. So people paid attention. And it's one of the cooler things I've seen in lacrosse in a long time.
I'll tell you what, I'm bummed that I wasn't in New York City for that. Like I mentioned, I was upstate at a wedding. It would have been cool to check out. But it's so funny. When I saw that announced, like I used to live in the East Village. And that's where me and my friends would go play basketball. And, always just running pickups over there. So I was laughing my butt off seeing them kind of bring out the nets, play 3x or speed lax, and
it was also cool to see Harlem Lax there.
Yeah, and City Lax was there. I saw
City Lax is there. There's a lot of kids. When I was living in the city, there's a lot of kids that wish they could play this game. And if we really believe in growing the game, like everybody loves to use that hashtag, but then they charge $16,000 to show up to an event, it's like, then grow it, man. Donate the sticks, donate some time, and let's spread this game, because you and I always talk about the difference between the sport and the industry of lacrosse, which I almost can't stand sometimes, as opposed to the game, which is shared and distributed and loved, and I'm glad to see the game got the recognition it deserved that night.
Yeah, and like their message, you don't need much, right, to just kind of play in the streets, right? You just need a mini stick net, couple sticks and a ball, and you can go have fun, be creative, get better, and just have fun playing pickup with your friends, just like you would play pickup basketball on that court. You can play pickup lacrosse. So it's really cool to see. I thought that was awesome. I like I said, I wish I was there, but cool event. Hats off to the PLL for putting that together. Hats off to all the players that they had games that weekend. They still showed out, had fun. That means so much to those kids in the city who know those players, or even though they don't know the players yet, now they do. I'm sure they're all their favorite players now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's still the best part about our game, is that it's still small enough where a professional athlete can hang out with the fans and get that close of an interaction. You don't see that in any other sport because of the size that it's gotten to. And I think we got to enjoy that, because we're in that sweet spot right now. Hopefully 10 years from now, lacrosse players are making $1 million playing. But in the meantime, let's enjoy the fact that we're all connected that way.
Couldn't agree more. And with that, man, that's our recap. That's our episode. Quick one for us. But be sure to tune in next week. We have an action-packed episode. We're going to preview the championship game. We're going to have Cotter on, giving us a breakdown. We're going to have our boys from PLL Bets coming through, giving us some sharp picks. But, man, that's episode 43. You have anything to finish with, Greg?
Nope. Go Penn State football this weekend.
Hell yeah. And go Pats. Big one against the Dolphins.
Got to get back on that winning column. Yep.
Make sure you subscribe on Apple, on Spotify, and if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to TorchPro's YouTube channel, and that is episode 43. We will see you guys next week.
To the moon!